Good afternoon. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I am the West African correspondent, Edward Amara. I am based in Kenema City, right in the heart of Kenema City, Sierra Leone, where I normally do my shows. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is a media platform that educate, entertain, and inform you, especially Roundtable Africa, where we discuss everything Africa. We bring you the latest development into Africa, breaking news, things that affect our continent, and things that Africa as a continent can do on our own to ensure that we have safety and we create a type of society that may enable us to compete healthily with the international world, maybe with the level of natural resources that we have, individual talents, especially with the type of demography that Africa has, very young, promising population. Maybe we can also help to create a platform, a kind of leadership style or caliber that may help this continent to develop from one stage to another. We all agree that Africa is the second largest continent on planet Earth, gifted with people of diverse religious and educational background, different type of ethnicity, and a continent that is gifted with all sorts of natural resources, and a continent that also suffered colonizations from different type of powers. So Africa has the opportunity maybe to mix itself with the other world. If you come here, you must see somebody who speaks Spanish, someone who speaks French, someone who speaks English, someone who speaks Dutch, and somebody who speaks Chinese and other people. Although we never suffer colonization from China, but there are certain countries where you have their citizens speaking Chinese. And some, like you get down into South Africa, you may see the Dutch, you may see Great Britain and other people. So I think Africa benefited a lot from colonizations, although colonization in the nutshell harm Africa more than the benefit that it received, because we exploited our country natural resources. We are carefully and deliberately taken by these Western powers today. They have found themselves into a first class or a developed one, while Africa still wallow maybe in the middle of natural resources, but yet our citizens keep suffering from poverty, illiteracy, and hunger. So all of these things are definitely affecting Africa, and today we are seeing that we have a divisive society, a society that is polarized with different type of things. Anyway, welcome to Focus on Liberia. I am their West African correspondent, one more, Edward Amara, based in Kenema City, Freetown, Sierra Leone. Feel free to participate, contribute, and if you have any knowledge that you think and feel that you can share with me while I am on the program, you can easily send a video link through this particular page, and maybe I can definitely invite you. You can make your own possible contribution to see that how Roundtable Africa can be pushed forward, and also ensure that we get accurate and careful information that can actually help in Africa. So today we are actually coming to discuss one of the most maybe notorious leader on the continent of Africa, and the second longest leader in power, Biya of Cameroon. He came to power since November 6, 1982. The dude has been in power for over 40 years. Maybe the only person who can boast of having stayed longer in power than him is the president of Equatorial Guinea, Theodore Nguema. So he's the only person who can definitely claim that, anyway, I am the one who have stayed into power more than Biya, only the Equatorial Guinean president. And fortunately, in one way, and unfortunately on the other way, all of them are found in Central Africa. And they also share borders. So I don't know, maybe there is a kind of exchange of mentality, ideology, and whatsoever thing. Or go and you can see maybe Equatorial Guinea suffered from Spanish and other French colonization, while Cameroon also suffered from both Britain, France, and also the German colonization. So maybe they have some similar background whatsoever thing. But before going over there, let me come with other stories to you that are actually emanating out of Africa. Anyway, one unfortunate thing that normally happens with the continent is that many a time if you go, you try to get news about the continent, on few occasions you see certain news that favor maybe the development of the continent that can actually help us to see that we are definitely competing with the outside world. Unfortunately, most of the stories that emanate out of Africa are definitely not favorable. But we as journalists, freelancers, we have little or no option rather than to come with what is definitely happening on the continent so that our people can be educated, they can be informed, they can be entertained, and also let them have vast knowledge on what happens to the continent. First, let's come into the southern part of Africa. You know, in southern Africa, we have a country known as South Africa. South Africa government warned against an attempt to overthrow the government. We have seen this morning Cyril Ramaphosa, the government of the president of the executive president of South Africa, definitely has warned against any attempt to overthrow the South African government. It is because you have the EFCC, the Economic Freedom Party, led by a notorious radical, maybe negatively radicalized person in the like of Julius Malema, who has actually been on the throat of the South African leadership since his days of opposition against the like of Jacob Zuma. You all know he was a youth leader. And like when we have notorious people like Bevin Chale, who was once the deputy secretary general of Kusaito. Maybe all of those things are coming. But now we are seeing Julius Malema rise to the rank of an opposition leader, and he has a parliamentary position. And up to 20 parliamentarians belong to the EFCC, the Economic Freedom Party. They have actually threatened to demonstrate against the South African government. But we all know what demonstration causes in South Africa, what protest causes in South Africa. They will use it as a yardstick to attack typical Africans who have no connection with the South African society. And they tend to blame them because of whatsoever wrong that might be going on in the society. Their reprisals are normally turned against the black Africans. Maybe white people are living in fortified or protected communities. So many times the demonstrators hardly come against them. The protesters hardly come against them because they live in fortified community where guileless, solidified, and we having sophisticated maybe type of weapon that they cannot be able, they cannot easily be infiltrated into their areas of operation. So that's why we have seen on numerous occasions that black Africans normally suffer from this attack. So we have seen Cyril Ramaphosa has definitely come to warn that any attempt for someone to demonstrate in South Africa without the government permission will be deemed or will be termed as a deliberate or calculated attempt to overthrow the South African government, and the police force will definitely come against you heavily. Now Julius Malema is also threatening that anyone who attempt to prevent them from protesting will definitely meet his maker. So I think the wording coming from the leadership of the country compared to the opposition is definitely not healthy. I believe the AU should be very concerned, also UN, because we all know what demonstration causes into South Africa. It is not the South Africans alone that suffer, rather the black, our colleagues, Africans suffer, especially people from southern part of Africa and those from the sub-Saharan Africa like Nigeria. We have them almost all around the country. They definitely come there and they suffer a lot. Then another development, we come into West Africa in Ghana. We all know what happened on February the 6th when Turkey was hit by that 6.5 magnitude of earthquake. It have killed over 40,000 citizens into Turkey. Now we also lost an African brother, Christian Astu, who used to play his football for Chelsea. He was definitely sold to Turkey, and in his tribe to become a professional, he became a professional, but in his exploit as a footballer, This man, Christian Astu, actually lost his life. He's a popular Ghanaian footballer who once played in both England. He plays in football also in Germany. Unfortunately, Christian Astu has definitely lost his life. Initially, we heard that he has been rescued. He was in the hospital. The family we had been briefed. Later on, we saw the wife coming to complain that it was a deliberate lie, that Christian Astu is not alive, until when finally it was being aired that Christian Astu actually lost his life in that particular article. Today, they are actually taking on his funeral. A lot of football stars, including a Samoa giant, Mark Essien, and others are definitely there to ensure that the man is being interred on a peaceful background. So let's also go into East Africa. We have Southern Sudan, the youngest country on the continent of Africa. Southern Sudan has definitely registered more civilian killings than any other year, but 1,600 civilians were killed in South Sudan for last year. And most of those killings definitely come from like conventional parties, those parties that are definitely involved into the war, and especially those coming from Riek Machar and South Bakia, the vice president and the president-elect. They are having clashes, and the Dinka, they have opposition clashes. Also, ethnicity is definitely involved, because we cannot term it as religion. Most of the South Sudanese are actually Christians. We have few Muslims, but when we are having war or conflict with Northern Sudan, then definitely you can term it to be religious and race war. Now it's no longer, it's more of tribal and clan war that is going into South Sudan. So some of those who are involved into the killing are conventional parties, the normal people fighting the war. There are also community-based violence or community defense groups, like what used to happen in Sierra Leone. They call them CDF, Community Civil Defense Forces. So most of them are actually involved into the killing. I also heard unidentified but related armed group. Most of the time this killing happen, and maybe the community defense group will say we are not the one. Maybe the Riek Machar group will be accused, or South Bakia group will be accused. So we are saying that we don't know actually who did this killing, but most of those killing actually happen from those places. Then we are also seeing Botswana minister denied and Kama warrant arrest in South Africa. Ankama was once the former president of Botswana, and the foreign minister has definitely, the current foreign minister of Botswana has definitely denied that an arrest warrant has been issued for the former president and opposition leader of Botswana, who currently resides in South Africa, for an arrest. However, plans are in place to ensure that he being officially indicted. If given the opportunity, he will be extradited to Botswana, where he will face charges of having arms and ammunition, which are actually deemed unlawful and violate the state crime. But for now, the foreign minister has denied that a warrant arrest has been issued for him. Then we also see cholera has killed over 37 in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is already suffering from conflict, and cholera has also added. It is just like flying it is just like when somebody jumped from the frying pot into the fire. So with all what is happening, cholera has also decided to ensure that it have another toll on Ethiopia. So I think it is high time Abiy Ahmed and people living in Tigrayan region, especially the leadership of Michael, should definitely come to the drawing board and ensure that citizens like that are definitely be safe. Then we also see Mozambique human rights condemn tear gas at rapper's funeral. There was a popular rapper in Mozambique who was a chief critic of the government, and when he died, people made an attempt to ensure that it's been buried on that state's platform, so that even though in death, people should know that he actually fought for the liberation of most of those Mozambicans, especially when they accuse the government of being corrupt, of being effective in the fight against Islamic, and also they accuse the government of having unfair, maybe crackdown on the civilian population. So definitely there was a clashes there with the police, and the police are claiming that they are definitely going to investigate the case to ensure that if whether it was the protester or those who actually the mourners that violated, or the police, and whosoever is found guilty according to the Mozambican police, that person will definitely be prosecuted. That is why the Mozambican police, we are yet to see. We all know how police force are corrupt, sometimes we are used as state instrument. We pray and hope that this is definitely not the case. Then let us see more body discovered in Malawi. Tropical storm, around 326 people were actually killed over the weekend in Malawi when the tropical storm hit the capital city, one of the cities in Malawi, Blantyre, Malawi. Or definitely over 326 people have actually been killed, and some of them unfortunately involved in the army, who sometime in Africa will depend most of the time that when it is time of the of natural disaster like that, we depend on the army to definitely intervene. This time most of the military definitely became victims. Then let us see Uganda pilgrims won against drinking the holy water. We all know how religion is so strong into Africa, and many a time we tend that religion is definitely the solution to all of our problems. So the Catholic definitely sometimes celebrate their religious mentality, and they do baptism and whatsoever thing. But some Christians who are so fanatic, radicalized, deeply fanatic, radicalized Christians who think and feel that everything about them is religious, and whenever they wash and baptize into this holy water, some of them can easily be tempted to drink the holy water. But since the water is not safe, health workers have warned that can lead to the escalation of tropical diseases, including cholera and other things. So they have definitely warned the clergymen who are actually doing the baptism and making this water to be holy water, so that the citizens of Uganda can drink, and people who are living from other eastern part of Africa to ensure that they celebrate this thing. They have warned them that people should not drink such thing like that, because it may definitely lead to another problem. So let's see again. Strange disease is killing people in Tanzania. Tanzania is also in the Horn of Africa, maybe where you have the Tutsis and Houthi. Some of them are definitely there. But let's see something. Another important thing about Tanzania. Tanzania is one of the countries where albino. We all know who are albinos, not so people who have that white color, as if some people they call them maybe black white men on the continent of Africa. But albinism is just more or less a kind of genetic disorder. Most of the time, albinos are definitely the target of Tanzanians. Sometimes they have religious or witch doctors who think that albinism is a cause, and sometimes some of them deem it that when you use an albino for ritual purpose, it can easily be real. Unfortunately, Tanzania has never been able to prevent the killing of albinos into the country, and many a time when it is time for election, especially like the ruling Chama Pinduzi party had been in power for quite a long time. So you see, most of these things happen, and the government have not been able to successfully prevent the killing of albinos into Tanzania. But that is not where we are watching at today. Strange disease is definitely killing people in Tanzania. And what are some of the possible symptoms of this strange disease? Have fever, headache, then sometimes nose bleeding occur. Maybe you can relate it to any other disease. And it was also in last year also in the southern Lindi region, also about 20 cases of that disease. People lost their life to that particular disease. And now we are seeing that strange diseases have started killing them, and the health minister and other people have definitely gone there to mount a serious investigation, and they are also calling on WHO and maybe other African health bodies to ensure that they help that particular East African country, so that this should not definitely consume them, and it should not be related to, it should not be like subject to what this escalation into that particular region. Let's see, we'll come to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe court uphold incitement charge against MP. So we know Zimbabwe. Hey God, we can still continue to remember the late Robert Gabriel Mugabe. And since he came into power in 1986, he merely died into power. If we are not the solid intervention of Grace Mugabe, then the war veteran deemed it necessary that no, a civilian who never tasted our war, who knew nothing, who after everything we fought, she was just like a kind of secretary attached to Mugabe's office. But when Mary died, Grace decided to definitely come and become what? I don't know, how can I call it? Mistress for Gabriel Mugabe. She took over power, and she was having an eye, according to the military, on the power. That was why Mugabe was civilizedly overthrown, and at the end of the day, we are seeing that the opposition who represent the Citizen Coalition for Change Party has definitely been arrested for incitement that led to a riot against the ruling party, resulted into the damage of property, maybe the loss of certain people's life, although the government denied. However, it was as a result of the man like Mo Blessing Ali, who was killed in some part of June, and the opposition decided that let us go. And this particular opposition leader, who is now under arrest, is actually representing the Zengeza region in Zimbabwe. Then finally, Museveni says the West are wasting time. The West definitely is wasting time on the push for gays' rights. That gays and gayism and lesbianism does not belong or do not belong to the continent of Africa. Neither the gay do not belong to the continent of Africa. Lesbians do not belong to the continent of Africa. So any attempt for the West to push for the legalization of them and the protection of their rights, he said, is a solid waste of time. He said even in the Western world, they have weird type of culture where cousins are allowed to marry their immediate cousins. Say, yeah, it doesn't really happen. So this Africa, we should maintain our own culture, and anybody who made an attempt to ensure that you become a gay and also become a citizen of Zimbabwe, or Uganda, Museveni is saying that you are risks being jailed for 10 good years, and with a maximum fine or else, things like that should never happen on the continent of Africa. And the man who has been in power since 1986 is calling upon his citizens and also other African leaders to ensure that gays and lesbians organizations are not being legalized into Africa, so that Africa should also have a cultural and Okay, so far so good. That was just a rundown on what is happening on the continent. So let's come now to Paul Biya. Paul Biya has been in power for over 40 good years, and now he is 90. He could stand for another term in office in 2025, when he will be 92. And if he stands for another 7 years as a president, then definitely if he wins, he will be 99 as president. What do you expect him to do? It's so silly. And he's the second longest world-serving leader, an authoritarian who came into power since 1982, just 3 years after the coming of Nguesso in power. I mean, in Guima, Theodore Nguima in power from Equatorial Guinea. Paul Biya has been in power for reasons best known to himself, and he has never helped to develop the country. He came, then in some part of 1994, there was a solid attempt to overthrow the strong man. He established an authoritarian regime, and he may claim that he has a multi-party system into Cameroon, but I can definitely tell you that it's not a multi-party system. Most of those smaller parties existing to Cameroon are being sponsored by the strong man, Paul Biya, so that they should provide a platform of opposition. But in reality, they are not opposition. They are just state-sponsored political parties, just to tell the international world and Africa alike that Cameroon is actually having a Western democracy. We are multi-parties existence is being legalized, encouraged, and is operating. But it's a careful and deliberate lie. There is nothing like that in Cameroon. Then, what he did, he created a faction for himself. And he created a dynasty of tribalism, nepotism, favoritism, regionalism, and sectionalism into Cameroon. He has cracked down on several media houses who do not report news in favor of the state. And most of his political appointees are coming from his tribe. Even the military that he has, most of the top ranking officers belong to his tribe. The general army is left into a relegated position. The strongest, well-organized and people, who have sophisticated and advanced training, what he does, he created them from his own tribe, empowered them so that nobody can have the opportunity to overthrow him. It was just like what happened into Guinea. It was just like a tribal dynasty living from one state to another, because Dumbuya, who came and overthrew, is another Mandinka Muslim. So it was not a Fulani, not a Soso, not a Kisi, not a Pele, not any other tribe. that overthrew Alpha Conde, rather another Mandingo. That was why we saw, we witnessed everything. Even there was not too much trouble because it was one tribe succeeding another. There was no reprisal. It's the same suppression. It's the same thing that is going on into Cameroon. Paul Biya has empowered his tribe. And arguably or unarguably, he is not the one leading Cameroon. He's now supporting his son. How many people think that he could be the next president? It's just unfortunate that since 1982, all generations coming from that only know Paul Biya as the only leader. And Cameroon since 1960 have only have 2 leaders. One ruled for 20 years from 1962 to 1982, and we have seen Paul Biya take over since 1982 to 2023. And Cameroon used to be one of the strong, in fact, it's the strongest economy in Central Africa. It used to be one of the second most cocoa producing country in the world. One of those things have been abandoned. Today, Cameroonians are living in absolute poverty. There is separatist movement. Both the Anglophone, the Ambazonians who are fighting for independence, and the Francophone cannot see eye to eye. We are seeing the French legitimating things for the English-speaking Cameroonians when they do not even have the same culture. Nigeria staying closer then is not helping the situation. Boko Haram have infiltrated into Cameroon. Of course, during Obasanjo, just after the death of Sani Abacha, the Bakassi Peninsula was given to them. But what have they benefited? Nothing. We are seeing a political culture into Africa that is deliberately destabilizing the situation into Africa, creating more poverty, creating more anger, creating more frustration. Africa is definitely being relegated. Strongest economy that we are expecting to advance by now because of wrong type of leadership style are now relegated. When you watch, almost all the news emanating from Africa is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Nigeria is definitely on the verge of taking the gubernatorial and state assembly election tomorrow after INEC have definitely been accused. And up to now, we have never heard nor seen the opposition going to court. And after the 5 days expire, Mr. Obi and Mr. Abubakar may no longer have the power to go because the 21 days maybe could have been expired. And they definitely told them 14 days time, that they should actually table their complaint, or they should consider Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu elected. Now, Paul Biya wants to come and run in 2025 when he will be 92. That is all political age, civil service age. Arguably, that man could be more than that. In fact, it has been popularly rumored that most of the speeches he gave on television are only being done after doctoring the old clips. And at the same time, when it is time for his birthday, they only said banner of "Hey Paul Biya," but you cannot see the man. So, no, is he dead or alive? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. When we are watching at this situation, Africa is becoming a ground where poverty, illiteracy, and ignorance, discontent, demonstration, war, we have the opportunity to strive. And it's because the leadership is not helping. And what do you think? Demonstration is the result of the voice of the unheard. I think Cameroonians need to be very careful. You cannot have a leader who is old enough to be at his home, maybe taking care of the children. Do we really think as Africans that it is Paul Biya that is leading Cameroon? It's a blatant lie. And unarguably, he is no longer there. His political yes men are around him. Cameroon do not have better rules. They do produce oil, but where do they go? Nothing. Since Bakassi Peninsula was handed over to them, what have they gained? Nothing. Instead, Boko Haram and other states insurgent movement are going against them. And you're having a leader who hardly speaks to the country. He doesn't speak to them. An old leader, an aged one, who does not even have the ability to walk. And we all know, when you are too old, even your brain dies. Naturally, you cannot think. And he's exhausted. He could have been at home, taking care of his grandchildren, maybe being a statesman. Unfortunately, he still claims to be the president of Cameroon. For over 2 years, no Cameroonian have ever seen him in public. So are they sure that it is Paul Biya that is leading Cameroon, or just his ministers, some powerful men within Cameroon? Any press that may decide to, they have what they call the Southern Cameroonian Broadcasting Service, SCBC. When you watch at it, a lot of political propaganda. We have seen how villagers have been killed, buried, tortured. And the army will say they mistake them for other things. So, let's assume that. And what is really wrong about Cameroon is that Paul Biya himself did not, or has not groomed up anybody that will definitely take over the leadership when he dies. Because he definitely, trust me, except otherwise, he could either be overthrown or die in power. But being overthrown is the least that we can expect. Reason being, the army that he created, the general army of Cameroon, is very weak. He has his tribesmen where he empowered, he gave them sophisticated weapons with advanced training, urbanized knowledge. So when the general army decide to overthrow them with inferior weapons, they can do nothing. And those people will be risk arrested, killed, tortured. So everybody is just silent. So a situation has been created into Cameroon where the result could be like oppression against the army. You have seen the Ambazonians do not want them to become part of Cameroon. They want to be identified as Anglophone Cameroonians, over 8 million of them. So this is very crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Then, in case eventually Paul Biya dies in power, what will be the result? We have seen great state. That is why I normally say an authoritarian, a totalitarian, a despotic, a dictator like Paul Biya, when he dies and he does not have somebody with that such leadership caliber to take over from him, the nation will definitely disintegrate. And you must expect the Ambazonians to become more powerful in terms of pushing for their independence, because the army will have a divided attention. One, there will be struggle on who to take over power, and the Ambazonians will also be pushing for that. So I think Cameroon is on the time bomb. People should intervene. But these of our so-called regional bodies, they are all listening. They can say nothing. Until when things goes worse, that will be the time they will come and start condemning. Mere wording, mere condemnation is not enough. Actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than words. People should understand this. So, it is so unfortunate. Paul Biya regime has benefited Cameroon not. It has succeeded in creating a divided society. Poverty, illiteracy, ignorance is on the high. Insurgent movement is now into the country. The country is greatly disintegrated. And Cameroon, as Nigeria, have over 200 tribes with different type of philosophy. It's unfortunate that things like that are existing. We pray and hope that Cameroon should become a liberated society where citizens will have the right to speak, where they will have the right to chart a change in leadership. Paul of Cameroon is one of the worst leaders that Africa has ever had, and he will go down in history as a worst person. And when he dies, the legacy that he leaves will end up to tear Cameroon apart, because there is no well-constructed plan in which a leader should hand over power. Of course, political parties taking power from him from the ballot box are out. He's only one of the few leaders who have won 92.8% of election, 72%, 80%, landslide victory when opposition are less felt. or seen. Even those results are well doctored, because most of those political parties are state sponsors. An attempt to form a legally opposition party in Cameroon will result into another killing. So it's sad, it's unfortunate, it's unprofessional, and it's definitely not helping Africa. And let's pray and hope that Cameroon should have a change of leadership. We are young Cameroonians, will be able to see how they navigate within the system, maybe compete with other worlds. Unfortunately, since after the first leader stepped down in the name of health reasons, Paul Biya took over in 1982. This is 2023. 40 plus some months. What Cameroon, 40 years plus some months. The only leader that Cameroon knows is Paul Biya. With few there are ministers into Cameroon who have even spent over 20 or 30 years as ministers. Calculated nonsense. Calculated nonsense. Some MPs, since Paul Biya came into power, they have been MPs. So what is the meaning of that? So how can you have MPs for life, ministers for life, president for life? This is a well-calculated stupidity that Africa is diving in. So there is no other educated person into Cameroon. You have even the judiciary is being run by the yes men of Paul Biya. The legislature is being run by the yes men of Paul Biya. The worst of all, speaking of the executive, he has the ability, the will, the whims and caprices to sack at his own will. So, if you want to win an election, you support the party of Paul Biya, or else you are going nowhere. It's a shame. It's a calculated disgrace. I think Africa should start thinking beyond the box. And let's hope and see that tomorrow's election, gubernatorial and state assembly election, comes through and it reflects the people of Nigeria. I can see Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Peter Obi, and the 6th-time defeated at the poll man, Atiku Abubakar, who arguably may not have an opportunity again to run, except otherwise. Because by the time another president election is being conducted into Nigeria, he will be merely into his 80s. So I don't know what he will be doing. Africa, let's learn. Thank you. It was me, Edward Amara, giving you an analysis on the current event in Africa with a deep analysis on the aged and the world's second serving leader, a dictator, an authoritarian man known as Paul Biya, who has succeeded to create a dynasty and employ his yes men both into the 3 arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Maybe the media should be the 4th arm. Unfortunately, if you are a media person who give straightforward analysis, you become an enemy of the state, and you are risk being arrested, jail, when little will be known about you. Maybe next time we will try to see another country. Thank you very much.